A black single mother helps a millionaire fix his broken car when he notices the ring on her finger. He is immediately shocked. She had lived in the shadows, forgotten by a world that never bothered to learn her name. But on that scorching summer afternoon, as heat waves danced across the empty highway, she became the lifeline for a man who seemed to have everything except the truth. Before we begin, if this story moves you, remember that your simple engagement helps stories like these reach others who need to hear them. We all know someone who has been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. Your support could be the reminder they need that their worth matters too. The luxury sedan had been running perfectly when Marcus Sterling left his estate that morning. The sleek black Mercedes, custom detailed and worth more than most people's homes, was supposed to deliver him to the most important business meeting of his career. Instead, it now sat powerless on the shoulder of Highway 45, steam billowing from under its hood like a mechanical cry for help. Marcus slammed his fist against the leather steering wheel, his Rolex catching the harsh afternoon sun. In exactly 37 minutes, he was supposed to be presenting his revolutionary biotech discovery to potential investors, a breakthrough that would cement Sterling Industries' dominance in genetic research and net him his second billion. "Damn European engineering," he muttered, loosening his silk tie as sweat began to soak through his custom Armani suit. The air conditioning had died with the engine, and the Mississippi heat was unforgiving even through the tinted windows. His phone showed no signal, a cruel irony for a man whose company had pioneered cellular technology improvements. He was stranded, helpless, and for the first time in years, completely out of control. The rumble of an approaching vehicle broke through his mounting panic. Marcus looked in his rearview mirror to see an old pickup truck, its blue paint faded and patched with primer, pulling over about 50 feet behind him. A woman emerged from the driver's side, and Marcus instinctively tensed. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, with rich dark skin that glowed despite the heat. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore work clothes, denim overalls over a white tank top, steel-toed boots and work gloves tucked into her back pocket. She moved with purpose, striding toward his car with confident steps that suggested she'd done this before. "Car trouble?" she called out, approaching without hesitation despite his obvious wealth and the stark contrast between their circumstances. Marcus rolled down his window, grateful for even the slight breeze the action provided. "The engine overheated. I have a critical meeting in half an hour, and my phone has no signal out here." The woman nodded, seemingly unfazed by his barely concealed irritation or his expensive attire. "Mind if I take a look? I'm pretty good with engines." Marcus hesitated. This woman clearly wasn't from his world. Her truck looked like it had seen better decades, and her clothes spoke of manual labor, not boardrooms. But he was desperate. "I suppose it couldn't hurt," he said, stepping out of the car, and immediately regretting it, as the heat hit him like a physical wall. The woman moved to the front of his car, waiting for him to pop the hood. When the steam cleared, she leaned in without hesitation, her hands moving over the engine with practiced confidence. "Coolant system's blown," she diagnosed within minutes. "Radiator hose split. I can patch it temporarily, won't be pretty, but it'll get you where you need to go." Marcus stared at her in amazement. "You can do that?" She gave him a look that was equal parts amused and patient. "I'm a certified automotive engineer, sir. I run Henderson's garage about 20 miles south of here. This is basic stuff." "I apologize," Marcus said quickly, realizing how his surprise might have sounded. "I didn't mean to assume." "Most people do," she replied without bitterness, already walking back to her truck. "I'll get my tools." As she worked on his engine with swift efficiency, Marcus found himself studying her. Her movements were precise, professional. She clearly knew what she was doing, yet there was something about her that nagged at him, a familiarity he couldn't place. "This should hold until you can get to a proper mechanic," she said, closing the hood. "But don't push it too hard, and definitely get it fixed before making any long trips." Marcus reached for his wallet, extracting several $100 bills. "Please, let me compensate you for your time and expertise." It was when she reached out to accept the money that Marcus saw it clearly for the first time. A distinctive gold ring on her right hand. Not just any ring. A family crest ring with intricate engravings, centered with a small diamond surrounded by emeralds arranged in a specific pattern. A ring he recognized because he'd seen it in family portraits his entire life. A ring that should have been buried with his grandmother 15 years ago. Marcus stared at the ring, his mind racing. The blood drained from his face as memories flooded back. His grandmother's stories, old family photographs, a ring that held generations of sterling family history. "That ring," he said, his voice unsteady. "Where did you get it?" The woman's hand immediately closed into a fist, her posture becoming defensive. "It belonged to my mother. Why do you ask?" "Because," Marcus said slowly, his heart pounding, "that ring is a sterling family heirloom. It's been in my family for over a century." The woman, he still didn't know her name, took a step back, her expression guarded. "I don't know what game you're playing, but this ring has been in my family my whole life." Marcus pulled out his phone, frantically scrolling through photos until he found what he was looking for. It was a digitized family portrait from the 1940s, showing his great-grandmother wearing the exact same ring. "Look," he said, showing her the screen. "This is my great-grandmother, Virginia Sterling. She's wearing your ring." The woman glanced at the phone, then back at Marcus, her eyes narrowing. "My mother's name was Virginia Henderson." She paused, studying Marcus's face more carefully. "And if you think you're going to con me out of my mother's ring?" "Henderson," Marcus repeated, the name triggering a memory. He'd heard that name before, in hushed family conversations, in documents he'd glimpsed as a child. "Was your mother from around here originally?" "Born and raised in Meridian, about 30 miles north," she replied, still wary. "Moved here when she married my father." "Why?" Marcus felt like the ground was shifting beneath him. "What was your mother's maiden name?" "Sterling," she said quietly. "Virginia Sterling Henderson." The silence that followed was profound. Marcus stared at this woman, this stranger who had just fixed his car, trying to process what she'd just told him. "That's impossible," he whispered. "There are no Sterlings in this area except my family, and certainly no—" He stopped himself before finishing the sentence. "No black Sterlings?" she finished for him, her voice sharp. "Is that what you were going to say?" Marcus had the grace to look ashamed. "I'm sorry. That was thoughtless. It's just, our family records don't show any." "Any what? Any family members who weren't white?" Her laugh was bitter. "Let me guess, your family kept very selective records." She walked back toward her truck, clearly intending to leave. Marcus followed her, his mind spinning with possibilities and implications. "Wait," he called out. "Please." "I'm Marcus Sterling. My family owns Sterling Industries. If your mother was really a Sterling, then your family," she said, turning back to face him. "Though apparently not the kind your family likes to acknowledge." Marcus ran his hands through his hair, his important meeting forgotten. "I need to know more, please. Could we talk somewhere? Maybe over dinner?" She studied him for a long moment. "You really think we're related?" "That ring doesn't lie," Marcus said, "and neither do family resemblances, now that I'm really looking at you." It was true. Now that he wasn't distracted by assumptions and first impressions, he could see it. The shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw, even the way she held herself. Features he'd seen in Sterling family portraits his entire life. "I'm Zara," she said finally. "Zara Henderson, and if we're going to talk, it needs to be somewhere public. I don't know you, regardless of what ring I'm wearing." Marcus's meeting with the investors would have to wait. He called his assistant from Zara's truck, her phone had better signal, and rescheduled, claiming a family emergency. It wasn't entirely false. They met at Rosa's Diner, a small establishment in downtown Meridian that Zara knew well, and Marcus had never heard of, despite growing up only an hour away. The contrast between his world and hers had never been clearer than when he pulled up in his newly repaired Mercedes next to pickup trucks and economy cars in the gravel parking lot. Inside, the diner was exactly what Marcus expected. Vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the smell of fried food. Zara was already seated in a back corner booth, the ring now conspicuously absent from her finger. "You hit it," Marcus observed, sliding into the seat across from her. "I don't advertise my mother's jewelry to strangers," Zara replied. "Even strangers who claim to be related to me." Marcus had used the drive over to think, to try to piece together what little he knew of his family history. "Zara, what did your mother tell you about the Sterling side of her family?" Zara stirred sugar into her coffee, taking her time to answer. "Not much. Said she was disowned when she was 18. Never talked about why, just said her family couldn't accept the choices she made." "What kind of choices?" "Well, she fell in love with my father, for one. James Henderson was a mechanic, a good man, but not what the Sterling family would have considered suitable, I imagine." Marcus nodded slowly. Even now, his family had strong opinions about appropriate marriages. Was that the only reason? Zara gave him a look that suggested she thought he was being deliberately obtuse. "Mr. Sterling, are you really so sheltered that you can't figure it out? My mother was a young white woman in the 1960s South who fell in love with a black man. What do you think her family's reaction was?" The pieces clicked into place with painful clarity. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. "They disowned her for marrying your father." "For loving my father," Zara corrected. "Long before they married. The day she brought him home to meet the family was the last day she was welcome in the Sterling house." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, processing this family history he'd never known. "Tell me about the ring." "It was the only thing she managed to keep when they threw her out. She said her grandmother had given it to her, told her it should stay in the Sterling bloodline. Mama kept it her whole life, even when we had to pawn everything else to pay rent or buy food." "You've had financial struggles?" Zara's laugh was sharp. "Mr. Sterling, I've been poor my whole life. Mama worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table after Daddy died when I was 12. I worked part-time through high school and took out loans to get through college. I own my garage, but it's a constant fight to keep it profitable. That ring is worth more than I make in a year, but I'd never sell it. It's all I have left of her." Marcus felt a weight settling in his chest. Guilt, shame, and something else he couldn't name. "Zara, if what you're telling me is true, if your mother really was Virginia Sterling—" "Then what?" she challenged. "Are you going to welcome your long-lost cousin with open arms? Invite me to family dinners? Or are you going to do what your family did to my mother, pretend I don't exist?" "I want to know the truth," Marcus said firmly. "And if the truth is that my family wronged yours, I want to make it right." Zara studied his face, looking for signs of deception or false promises. "My mother died 5 years ago," she said quietly. "Cancer. I couldn't afford the experimental treatments that might have saved her, so forgive me if I don't trust your sudden interest in making things right." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of their food, simple diner fare that Marcus picked at while Zara ate with the appetite of someone who had learned never to waste a meal. "I have a son," she said suddenly. "Jamal. He's 8. Smart as a whip, loves building things with his hands just like his grandfather did. He doesn't know anything about the Sterling side of the family. I've never told him he has relatives with money because I didn't want him to grow up feeling ashamed of what we don't have." "Can I meet him?" Marcus asked. Zara's protective instincts flared. "Why? Because if we're family, he should know that. And because I'm tired of carrying on my ancestors' mistakes." Marcus spent the next 3 days diving into family records he'd never bothered to examine closely before. In his father's study, in dusty archives, in filing cabinets that hadn't been opened in years, he searched for any mention of Virginia Sterling. He found her birth certificate easily enough. Virginia Rose Sterling, born 1946, daughter of Richard and Margaret Sterling. She was his grandfather's sister, making Zara his first cousin once removed. But after 1964, it was as if Virginia had simply vanished from all family records. Until he found his grandfather's private papers. Hidden in a locked drawer that Marcus had to force open, he discovered a series of letters, legal documents, and what appeared to be private investigator reports. The picture they painted made Marcus sick to his stomach. Virginia had been cut off completely when she refused to end her relationship with James Henderson. The family had hired investigators to follow her, document her shameful behavior, and ensure she never attempted to claim any inheritance. When she married James and had a daughter, the surveillance had intensified. Most damning of all was a letter in his grandfather's handwriting, dated just 2 years ago. The Henderson woman is getting too close to the truth about the Virginia situation. Ensure she receives no assistance from any family-affiliated medical centers or insurance companies. The family secret must remain buried. Marcus read the letter 3 times, his hands shaking with rage. His grandfather had actively worked to ensure that Zara and her mother remained in poverty, had even interfered with her mother's medical care. He called Zara that evening. "I need to see you again. I found something." They met at the garage where Zara worked. It was after hours, and she was alone, working on an old Buick by the light of fluorescent shop lamps. She looked up when he entered, her face smudged with grease, her overalls stained with motor oil. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she observed. "Maybe I have," Marcus replied. He showed her the documents he'd found, watching her face as she read through them. With each page, her expression grew harder, angrier. "They were watching us," she said finally. "All those years, we struggled and scraped, and they were watching us struggle." "Zara, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "Of course you didn't," she snapped. "You were living in your mansion, going to your private schools, never wondering why some family members were missing from the Christmas photos." Marcus accepted her anger because he deserved it. "What can I do? How can I make this right?" Zara was quiet for a long time, staring at the documents spread across her workbench. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "You can't bring my mother back," she said simply. "You can't give me back the years of struggle, the nights I went to bed hungry because Mama gave me her food. You can't undo the fact that she died thinking her family never loved her." "But I can try to ensure Jamal doesn't grow up the way we did," Marcus said, in ignorance of his real family. Zara considered this. "What are you proposing?" "First, I want to officially acknowledge you and Jamal as family. Change the family records, put Virginia back where she belongs in the family tree. Second, I want to establish a trust fund for Jamal's education, college, graduate school, whatever he wants to pursue. And third," Zara asked, reading in his expression that there was more. "Third, I want to offer you a place in the family business. Sterling Industries could use someone with your mechanical expertise and engineering background. We're developing new manufacturing technologies that could benefit from your knowledge." Zara stood up, walking to the garage's open bay door to look out at the street. "And what happens when your fancy business associates meet your black cousin from the wrong side of town? Then they'll learn that family is about more than bloodlines and bank accounts," Marcus replied. 2 weeks later, Marcus arranged a family gathering at the Sterling estate. He told his relatives only that he had an important announcement to make about recently discovered family members. The reaction to Zara and 8-year-old Jamal's arrival was everything he'd expected and worse. "Marcus," his Aunt Catherine whispered urgently, pulling him aside. "What is the meaning of this? Who are these people?" "Family," Marcus replied simply. "Aunt Catherine, I'd like you to meet Zara and Jamal Henderson. Zara is Virginia's daughter." The mention of Virginia's name sent a ripple of uncomfortable recognition through the room. The older family members knew exactly who Virginia was, while the younger generation looked confused. "That's impossible," declared Marcus's Uncle Richard. "Virginia died years ago." "Virginia Henderson died 5 years ago," Marcus corrected, "after living her entire adult life cut off from her family because you couldn't accept who she chose to love." The family gathering devolved into chaos. Some relatives stormed out immediately. Others stayed to argue, voices rising as decades of buried secrets came to light. Through it all, Zara sat quietly with Jamal, who was playing with a handheld game, oblivious to the drama surrounding him. "This is exactly what I expected," Zara said quietly to Marcus during a momentary lull in the shouting. "I'm sorry," he replied. I hope they might be different." "Mr. Sterling, Marcus, you can't change 70 years of prejudice with one family dinner." 8-year-old Jamal looked up from his game. "Mama, why is everyone so mad?" Zara smoothed his hair gently. "Sometimes, baby, people get upset when they have to face things they don't want to think about." Marcus watched the interaction, struck by the dignity with which both mother and son handled the hostility around them. He made a decision. "Everyone, please," he called out, standing up. The room gradually quieted. "I understand this is shocking news, but Zara and Jamal are family, whether you accept them or not. and I'm prepared to prove it. Marcus arranged for comprehensive DNA testing, despite Zara's initial reluctance. "I know who I am," she said. "I don't need a lab test to prove my mother's stories were true." "But it will shut down any arguments about legitimacy," Marcus pointed out. "And it will give Jamal documentation of his heritage that no one can dispute." The results, when they came back 2 weeks later, confirmed what the ring and family records had already made clear. Zara was indeed a Sterling, carrying the genetic markers that traced her lineage directly back to the family's founding patriarch. Marcus used the DNA evidence to have the family records officially updated, restoring Virginia's name to the family tree and adding Zara and Jamal. He also began the legal process of establishing Jamal's trust fund and formally offering Zara a position at Sterling Industries. To his surprise, she turned down the job offer. "I appreciate it," she explained over coffee at Rosa's diner, which had become their regular meeting place. "But I have my own business to run. What I would like, though, is the chance to bid on some of Sterling Industries' automotive contracts. Fair and square, no family favors." Marcus respected her independence, even as he wished he could do more to make up for the years of neglect and hardship. "There is one thing," Zara added. "I want Jamal to know his full family history, the good and the bad. I want him to grow up understanding that people can change, that we can be better than our ancestors were." Over the following months, Marcus and Zara developed an unexpected friendship. He began spending time at her garage, learning about the hands-on work that made his luxury lifestyle possible. She occasionally visited the Sterling estate, where Jamal delighted in exploring the vast grounds his mother had been forbidden to enter as a child. Not all the family embraced Zara and Jamal. Several relatives continued to maintain their distance, making their disapproval clear through cold silence. But others, particularly some of the younger family members, welcomed the chance to connect with cousins they'd never known existed. Marcus's sister Elena, in particular, formed a strong bond with Zara. "I can't believe we went 30 years without knowing about you," she said during one family gathering. "Mama always said something was missing from the family stories." "Your mother knew about Virginia?" Zara asked. "Not specifics, but she suspected. She used to ask Daddy about family members who didn't appear in photos, cousins that were mentioned in passing but never seen. He always got uncomfortable and changed the subject." Jamal, meanwhile, was thriving with his newfound extended family and the security that came with it. His trust fund meant Zara no longer had to worry about his education or future opportunities, and the boy showed signs of the same mechanical aptitude that ran in both sides of his family. "He wants to be an engineer," Zara told Marcus one day as they watched Jamal help her work on a car engine. "Not because he has to, but because he loves figuring out how things work." "The Sterling family could use more engineers," Marcus replied, "especially ones who understand the business from the ground up." A year after their first meeting on Highway 45, Marcus and Zara returned to the same stretch of road. This time it was planned, a symbolic journey to mark how far they'd come. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if your car hadn't broken down that day?" Zara asked as they stood beside the spot where she'd first helped him. "I try not to," Marcus replied. "It makes me sick to think we might have lived our whole lives as strangers." They had come to make an announcement. Sterling Industries was launching a new initiative, the Virginia Zara Henderson Foundation, focused on providing educational and entrepreneurial opportunities for underserved communities. Zara would serve on the board of directors, ensuring the foundation stayed true to its mission. "Mama would have liked this," Zara said, touching the ring she now wore openly, no longer hiding her heritage. "I think she would have liked you standing up for what's right," Marcus agreed, "even when it's difficult." As they prepared to leave, a car pulled over, another stranded motorist in need of assistance. Without hesitation, Zara grabbed her tools from her truck and went to help, Marcus following behind. The driver, an elderly white man, looked skeptical when he saw Zara approaching. "I'm not sure a lady like you can help with this," he said hesitantly. Marcus stepped forward. "Sir, you're looking at one of the finest automotive engineers in the state. I'd trust her with any car." As Zara quickly diagnosed and repaired the man's alternator problem, Marcus reflected on how one chance encounter had changed everything. They'd found family where they least expected it, bridged divides that had seemed insurmountable, and proven that love and acceptance could triumph over decades of prejudice. "All set," Zara announced, closing the man's hood. "That should get you home safely." The man tried to pay her, but she waved him off. "Just pass it forward," she said. "Help someone else when you get the chance." As they watched the grateful driver pull away, Marcus put his arm around his cousin's shoulders. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For giving me a real family. For showing me what the sterling name could really stand for." Zara smiled, looking at the ring that had started it all. "Mama always said this ring would find its way back to where it belonged. I thought she meant with the sterling family. But maybe she meant with family that actually understands what sterling means. Not the precious metal, but the character. Something tested, proven, and true." "Sterling character," Marcus repeated. "I like that." 5 years later, Jamal Henderson, now 13, stood before the annual Sterling Industries board meeting, presenting his design for a more efficient electric vehicle engine. The prototype, built in his mother's garage with guidance from both sides of his family, represented everything the Sterling legacy could be: innovation, determination, and the bridging of different worlds. Zara watched from the audience, proud beyond words. Beside her sat Marcus and Alina, along with several other family members who had come to appreciate what they'd gained, rather than focus on what they'd lost. After the presentation, as the board members peppered Jamal with impressed questions, Marcus caught Zara's eye and nodded toward the door. They stepped out into the hallway, where portraits of Sterling family members lined the walls. "Look," Marcus said, pointing to the most recent addition, a formal portrait of Virginia Sterling Henderson, restored to her rightful place in the family gallery. "She's beautiful," Zara said softly. "I'm glad she's finally home." "We all are," Marcus replied. "All of us." As they returned to the boardroom, where Jamal was still fielding questions about his innovative design, Zara touched the ring that had reunited their families. In bringing them together, it had done more than restore a bloodline. It had restored hope that change was possible, that justice could prevail, and that family was bigger than the prejudices that sometimes divided it. The ring had kept its promise, passed down through generations as a symbol of the Sterling family's true values. Not wealth or status, but the Sterling character that shone through even in the darkest times, waiting for the right moment to claim its rightful inheritance. If this story of family, redemption, and second chances has touched you, remember that our own prejudices and assumptions can blind us to the family and connections that surround us every day. Share this story to remind others that worth isn't determined by circumstance, that family comes in many forms, and that it's never too late to make things right.